Hey there traders, and welcome back for episode number 103 from the StockBandit.tv. This is the place you can always find trading videos to make you better. And lately, you haven't seen a whole lot of trading videos around here. That's because most of my efforts have been placed elsewhere. We have a brand new website over at the StockBandit.com. I hope you'll come over and check it out, but you'll understand why. Obviously, the free content has been limited due to all the stuff that we've been doing for members. So back to the task at hand, taking a look at the market view for this week. We've got kind of an interesting situation starting to develop out there with the major averages really rebounding quite nicely last week. For the NASDAQ and the S&P 500, that meant a solid week of upside with 5 in a row sessions of green. And more importantly, this swift move down that we saw at the end of last month and the very beginning of October was completely erased with this bounce. So in the near term, we've got this V-shaped recovery taking place in each of the major averages. And more importantly, we're coming right back up to this area right up here of upper resistance. And so for the NASDAQ, that level right up there is the 2150 area. And that represents a very important zone that was tested a number of times during 2008. Once we finally got through it, it really brought some significant downside. So to see such a major return to that level and see a couple times lately us kind of challenging that same zone, we did poke through briefly here just in September, but we couldn't close above that level. So we need to see a close above 2150. And if we do see that, then this market is poised to move higher once again, because of course, after the most recent run up, essentially we've just been kind of moving sideways here in this big channel pattern over the past several weeks. So if we can punch through 2150, and especially on high volume, then that would really open the door for another technical leg higher. But for now, we're really contending with this major area right here. So it's going to be an interesting next few days to see if the bulls want to go ahead and push on through, or if instead they move to books and profits as that resistance area is approached. Now in the short term, we do have some support down here at the 2085 zone. So if we do start to pull back, that's the next level I would expect to see some buyers try to step back in. For the S&P 500, here again, spending most of the last few weeks in this trading range here, we saw a brief attempt above that 1074 zone. We saw a brief move back under the 1039 area, but for the most part, we've been stuck in between those two key zones, and we've now rallied right back up to challenge that 1074 area. Especially on a closing basis, we're going to need to see a push beyond that and a close above it. And it would be very important if the bulls could do that on some kind of a spike in volume, because what we had here was a pretty heavy volume sell-off. Take a look at this volume right here, followed by a V-shaped recovery right back up to erase all those losses. But the recovery came on lighter volume, which shows less participation. And that may bring some short covering into the picture. We know for a fact that the dip buyers are extremely confident. They've even in recent the past 2 months, we've seen higher lows established there, and of course those higher lows go all the way back to the March low. So we're still in an uptrend here very much, but in the near term, after 5 straight days of upside right to a key level on weak volume, it's time to be very cautious here on the long side for anything but the very shortest of time frames. And let's just see if the bulls want to go ahead and push on through this 1074 zone and close above it and bring the volume to match that. For the Dow, very similar story here. Upper resistance is right up here at the 9854 area, which we saw exceeded last week by just a few points. We closed about 10 points beyond that, 9864 and change. But here again, the volume very light. So we've got this V-shaped bounce right up to this area of resistance. Even though we're through it, we're only through it by about 10 points. So follow through is going to be very important. And of course, we've got the high right back here, set back in September at the 99.17 area for the Dow. But for the most part, this index is really going to follow the cues that the NASDAQ and the S&P put forth. So those are really the two key indices that I'm going to be watching in the days ahead. And of course, I've already covered those levels there. But that's what the big picture is looking like. And from there, of course, we know we can find lots of individual setups to take a look at. So thanks for joining me once again for this episode. I will be back soon with more videos, but in the meantime, trade like a bandit.